The whispers of power call to me. I will claim what is mine by right. None shall stand in my way.
The bells of King's Landing did not ring for surrender. They rang because something worse had arrived. Not dragons, not wildfire, not the fulfillment of ancient prophecies whispered by mad kings and drunken priests. A man who did not believe in kings, a man who did not kneel to gods. Not the seven, not the old gods, not even the gods of his own people. A man who looked at the iron throne forged from 1,000 conquered swords and saw only one thing: weakness. And before the city understood what was happening, before the small council could convene, before Cersei Lannister could scheme or Tyrion Lannister could strategize, the gates were already burning. Ships filled the horizon, not flying the banners of Westeros, not the Lannister lion, not the Stark wolf, not the Targaryen dragon. These ships bore symbols far older than the Seven Kingdoms: ravens, serpents, and the carved faces of forgotten gods. The Vikings, and at the front of them all, standing on the prow of a longship that had crossed seas no Westerosi sailor dared navigate, stood a man this world was never meant to face: Ragnar Lothbrok. But wait, what happens when a world built entirely on politics meets a man who only understands conquest? What happens when centuries of strategic marriages and careful alliances face someone who sees diplomacy as weakness? What happens when honor meets brutality? When kings meet a man whose greatest achievement is killing kings? Because this is not a war for the Iron Throne. This is a war that will decide if thrones even matter anymore. The invasion has begun, and Westeros has no idea what it's facing. Now, if you want to see more legendary characters enter new worlds, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a warrior or hero you'd want to see conquer another universe in the comments below. May your battles be legendary. The first village disappeared on a night with no moon. Saltshore, a minor coastal settlement in Dorne. Population maybe 300. Fisherfolk mostly, a few traders, nothing strategic, nothing worth targeting in the endless games the great houses played with each other's lives. The merchant ship that arrived at dawn found only silence. No bodies, no blood, no signs of battle. Just empty houses with doors left open, meals half-eaten on tables, fishing nets still drying on racks. As if 300 people had simply decided to walk into the sea and never return. The merchant captain reported it as plague, perhaps madness in the water supply, anything to explain the impossible emptiness. 2 weeks later, 3 more villages vanished the same way, then 5, then a dozen. The reports that reached King's Landing's small council were contradictory, confused, wrapped in the superstition of terrified survivors who'd hidden when the ghost fleet arrived. Some claimed the ships came from the smoking sea, cursed vessels crewed by the damned. Others swore they'd seen warriors who fought like demons, who killed without mercy and moved through darkness like smoke. But one detail appeared in every report, carved or painted or written in blood at every site. A name: Ragnar. Cersei Lannister, Queen Regent and holder of power in King's Landing. He listened to these reports with the expression of someone hearing fairy tales told by peasants desperate for attention. "Raiders," she said dismissively, waving a jeweled hand at the assembled council. "The Stepstones breed pirates like rats, send a squadron of ships, burn their nest, and hang the survivors. This council has more important matters than bedtime stories about ghost warriors." Tyrion Lannister, her brother and hand of the queen, studied the map where red marks indicated each vanished settlement. The pattern wasn't random. It traced the coast methodically, moving north, always north toward King's Landing itself. "These aren't pirates," Tyrion said quietly. "Pirates raid for gold, for slaves, for supplies. These villages were left empty but untouched. No looting, no burned buildings. Just..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Erased, as if someone is testing our defenses." "Testing?" Cersei laughed, cold and sharp. "What fool would test the might of the Iron Throne with parlor tricks in fishing villages?" But across the chamber, Grand Maester Pycelle, ancient, cautious, and far more learned in history than anyone gave him credit for, cleared his throat with the sound of parchment tearing. "Your Grace, if I may." He shuffled forward, arthritis making each step a negotiation. "There are precedents, old accounts from the Age of Heroes, raiders from across the Narrow Sea, from lands beyond even Essos, warriors who did not fight for territory or gold, but for glory, for the proving of strength. The singers called them..." "I don't care what singers called them," Cersei snapped. "Send ships, end this. And if any of you waste my time again with peasant superstitions, you'll learn why the Iron Throne has survived this long." The council dispersed, but Tyrion remained, staring at the map, at the pattern of vanished villages drawing ever closer to the capital. He poured wine, a good arbor gold, wasted on worry, and whispered to the empty chamber, "Someone is coming, and they're not coming to negotiate." He had no idea how right he was. 300 miles to the south, Ragnar Lothbrok stood on a cliff overlooking the Narrow Sea, watching the sun set over Westeros with the eyes of a man studying prey. His warriors waited behind him, 50 of his best, each one worth 10 of any knight in shining armor. They'd left the longships hidden in a cove, guarded by the rest of his forces. This first expedition was about information, not conquest. A not yet. Floki, his shipbuilder and closest friend, approached with that peculiar tilting walk, grinning like always. "So, is it worth the journey, Ragnar? Is this land of knights and castles everything the traders promised?" Ragnar didn't answer immediately. His eyes tracked the distant lights of settlements, the roads connecting them, the complete absence of walls or defenses anywhere except the cities themselves. "They're soft," he said finally. "They've been fighting each other so long they've forgotten what a real enemy looks like. They think walls and titles make them safe." "And do they?" Floki asked, though he already knew the answer. Ragnar smiled, that dangerous smile that always preceded violence. "Walls only work if you're watching the right direction. These people are so busy stabbing each other in the back, they'll never see us coming from the sea." He turned to face his warriors, and even in the fading light they could see the hunger in his eyes. Not for gold, not for land, for the challenge itself. "We don't attack yet," Ragnar commanded. "First we go inside their great city. We learn how they think, how they fight, how they die, and then..." His smile widened. "We show them what it means to face warriors who don't fear their Iron Throne or their dragon banners or their 7 gods." Bjorn, his eldest son, stepped forward with the eagerness of youth and the skill of a born fighter. "How do we enter their city without an army? Their gates won't simply open for raiders." "No," Ragnar agreed, "but they'll open for sellswords. Mercenaries, men looking for gold and glory. We're willing to fight in their endless little wars." He gestured toward the distant lights of King's Landing, faint on the horizon. "We become what they expect. We walk through their gates while they watch for threats outside their walls." "And then?" Floki asked, that mad grin growing wider. "And then," Ragnar replied, "we teach them that the greatest danger always comes from within." The warriors laughed, not loud, not boastful, but with the quiet confidence of men who'd conquered kingdoms and killed legends. They'd crossed an ocean on faith and hunger. They'd left behind everything familiar to test themselves against a new world. And they were about to walk into the heart of Westeros like wolves entering a sheep pen. In King's Landing, the bells rang the evening hour, calling the faithful to prayer and the merchants to close their shops. Normal sounds of a normal day in a city that had survived invasions, mad kings, and political upheavals for centuries. No one noticed the handful of foreign warriors who'd entered through the merchant gate that afternoon, claiming to be sellswords from Essos, seeking employment. No one recognized Ragnar Lothbrok as he walked through their streets, studying their defenses, counting their guards, memorizing the patterns of their daily routine. No one realized that the greatest threat to their kingdom wasn't massing at the gates with siege engines and banners. It was already inside, watching, learning, planning, and when the time came, when Ragnar had seen enough, learned enough, tested enough, King's Landing would discover what it meant to face a man who didn't conquer cities for crowns. He conquered them to prove crowns meant nothing. The small council chamber reeked of wine, perfume, and barely contained hostility, the signature atmosphere of Westerosi politics. Cersei Lannister sat at the head of the table like a queen on a battlefield, every gesture calculated for maximum dominance. Around her, the usual suspects played their usual roles. Qyburn offering medical insights no one wanted. Grand Maester Pycelle pretending senility while recording everything, and Tyrion drowning his brilliance in wine, because sobriety made this council unbearable. "The coastal raids have stopped," Cersei announced with satisfaction. "As I predicted, a show of force was all that was required. 2 warships patrolling the southern waters, and these ghost raiders vanished like morning mist." Tyrion swirled his wine, studying the red liquid instead of his sister's face. Or they accomplished whatever they came to do and moved to the next phase. "Always the pessimist, dear brother. I prefer realist." He finally looked up, meeting her emerald glare. "The raids stopped 3 days ago. That's not victory, that's a pause. And in my experience, enemies who pause are planning something worse." "Then perhaps you should drink less and strategize more," Cersei said, poison wrapped in silk. But before Tyrion could craft his retort, the chamber doors opened with enough force to make several council members flinch. A city watch commander entered, armor still dusty from patrol, face carrying the expression of someone who'd just discovered something they wished they hadn't. "Your Grace, my Lord Hand, we've arrested someone, a foreign warrior. Claims he wants to offer his services as a sellsword." "But," the commander hesitated, "there's something wrong about him." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "Wrong how?" "He doesn't behave like other mercenaries, Your Grace. When we questioned him about his origins, he just smiled. Like our questions amused him, like he knows something we don't." Then throw him in a cell until he learns respect, Cersei said, already losing interest. Actually, Tyrion interjected, setting down his wine with uncharacteristic focus, I'd like to question him myself. If foreign warriors are entering our city, I want to know why. Cersei waved dismissive permission, and Tyrion followed the commander from the chamber, his mind already racing through possibilities. Foreign sellswords appeared in King's Landing regularly, Dothraki, unsullied deserters, Essosi blademen seeking gold. But something in the commander's unease suggested this one was different. He found out how different when they reached the holding cells. The prisoner sat on a stone bench, completely relaxed despite chains on his wrists, chains that looked almost decorative on someone who clearly didn't consider them restraints. He wore simple leather and furs out of place in King's Landing's heat, with tattoos visible on his arms and a braid in his hair that marked him as something other than Westerosi. But it was his eyes that stopped Tyrion mid-step, blue, sharp, studying Tyrion with the same intensity a hunter studies prey, mapping weaknesses, calculating angles of attack, processing information with frightening speed. And when those eyes met Tyrion's, the prisoner smiled. "You're different from the others," the man said in accented but clear common tongue, his voice carrying casual confidence that made the guards shift uncomfortably. "The rest look at me and see a threat or a tool. You look at me and see a question you want answered." Tyrion recovered his composure, moving closer despite every instinct screaming that this man was dangerous in ways he couldn't articulate. "I'm Tyrion Lannister, Hand of the Queen. You've entered my city claiming to be a sellsword, but you don't carry yourself like any mercenary I've encountered. So I'll ask directly, who are you, and what do you want in King's Landing?" The prisoner stood, not threateningly, but with such fluid grace that two guards reached for their swords and extended his chained hands in a gesture that was somehow both mocking and respectful. "I am Ragnar Lothbrok, and I'm here because I wanted to see if the stories about your Iron Throne were true." The name meant nothing to Tyrion, but the way Ragnar said, "your Iron Throne," with subtle emphasis on "your," as if ownership was temporary and negotiable, sent ice through his veins. "Stories?" Tyrion asked carefully. "That it's made from 1,000 conquered swords, that it represents absolute power over an entire realm." Ragnar tilted his head, studying Tyrion like a scholar examining an interesting insect. "In my homeland, we believe power isn't given by sitting on a chair made of dead men's weapons. It's taken, proven, earned through strength and cunning. So I wanted to see for myself. Is your throne earned or just inherited?" "And your conclusion?" Tyrion heard himself ask, despite knowing he should end this conversation immediately. Ragnar's smile widened, showing teeth. "I've been in your city 3 days. I've watched your guards patrol the same routes at the same times every day. I've seen your nobles betray each other in open court while pretending loyalty. I've observed how you trust your gates and walls to protect you, never suspecting that your greatest threats walk through them freely." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "Your throne isn't earned, little man. It's borrowed, and borrowed things eventually get taken back." The threat couldn't have been clearer if he'd drawn a weapon. But what froze Tyrion's blood wasn't the threat itself. It was the absolute certainty in Ragnar's voice. This wasn't bravado or madness. This was assessment. Professional, clinical. "You're the coastal raider," Tyrion said, pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. "The ghost fleet, the vanished villages, that was you." "Testing," Ragnar corrected, "studying, learning if this land of kings and knights was worth conquering or just another weak realm hiding behind walls and titles." He leaned forward, chains rattling. "And do you want to know what I learned?" Tyrion's mouth had gone dry. "What?" "That Westeros is already dying. You don't need invaders. You're devouring yourselves from within. All I have to do is push, and your kingdom will collapse like a house built on sand." For several heartbeats, silence filled the cell, except for the distant sounds of King's Landing going about its day, completely unaware that something monstrous had walked into its heart. Then Tyrion did something that surprised even himself. He laughed. "You know what's terrifying? I believe you actually think you can do it." "I don't think," Ragnar replied. "I know, because I've conquered cities that made yours look like children's toys. I've killed kings who commanded armies 10 times the size of yours. And I've learned something in all my years of war, something your people have forgotten." He stood, chains falling to the floor with a clang that made guards rush forward, though Tyrion waved them back with growing horror. Ragnar hadn't broken the chains. They'd simply been loosely placed, and he'd slipped free while they talked. "What?" Tyrion whispered. "What have we forgotten?" Ragnar's smile became something terrible. "That kingdoms aren't conquered from outside. They rot from within. And all a skilled warrior needs to do is find the rot and push." He turned to leave, walking past guards too shocked to stop him, pausing only at the cell door to look back at Tyrion with something almost like respect. "Tell your queen something for me," Ragnar said. "Tell her the gates are already open. Tell her the walls are already breached. Tell her a storm is coming that doesn't care about her crown or her schemes or her throne." He smiled one final time. "Tell her. Winter is here." And then he was gone, walking through corridors and past guards like a ghost, leaving Tyrion standing in the cell with the realization that Westeros had just made a terrible, fatal mistake. They'd let a predator inside, and by the time they realized it, the killing would already have begun. 3 nights after Ragnar walked out of his cell, King's Landing burned. Not everywhere, not obviously, just strategic fires. A granary in Flea Bottom, the barracks housing the City Watch's night rotation, a warehouse storing imported weapons meant for the Royal Army. Each fire started in the dead hours between midnight and dawn. Each blaze seemingly unconnected. Each one blamed on accident or carelessness. But Tyrion knew better. He stood in the Tower of the Hand, staring at a map where red markers indicated every incident, watching the pattern emerge like a constellation of disaster. The fires weren't random. They were surgical, designed to cripple infrastructure without triggering full military response. "He's already started," Tyrion muttered, pouring wine with shaking hands. A knock at his door made him flinch, a reaction he hated, a reminder that fear had entered King's Landing as surely as fire. "Enter." Bronn strode in, sellsword turned commander, his usual smirk replaced by genuine concern. "You were right to send me looking. Found 3 City Watch officers dead in their homes tonight, throats cut, clean, professional. not robbery, nothing taken except their patrol schedules. Of course not robbery. Tyrion drained his cup. He's not here for gold. He's dismantling our defenses piece by piece, and we're only now realizing it. Who is? The Viking, Ragnar, the man we stupidly let walk free. Tyrion slammed his cup down hard enough to crack the wood beneath. I told Cersei, I warned the council, but no one believed one man could threaten an entire city. One man can't, Bronn pointed out. He's not alone. Tyrion moved to the window overlooking the city. Dawn was breaking, revealing smoke from overnight fires painting the sky gray. Somewhere in this city, he has warriors. Perhaps a dozen, perhaps more. They're moving through our streets like smoke striking where we're weakest, disappearing before we can respond. And the worst part, he turned to face Bronn. I think he's been planning this since the moment he entered our gates. Then we hunt him, lock down the city, search and create panic. Turn our people against us when we start breaking down doors searching for foreign raiders. Tyrion shook his head. That's exactly what he wants. He's not just attacking infrastructure, he's attacking trust. Every fire makes people question the City Watch's competence. Every dead officer makes guards look over their shoulders instead of at actual threats. He's making us destroy ourselves from fear. Bronn absorbed this, hand resting on his sword. So what do? Tyrion started, then stopped as shouting erupted from the courtyard below. Both men rushed to the window, looking down to see guards dragging someone through the Red Keep's gates. Not a prisoner, but one of their own, wild-eyed and covered in blood. Minutes later, the man sat in Tyrion's chamber, still shaking, still bleeding from wounds that weren't deep enough to kill, but deep enough to terrify. They came from nowhere, the guard gasped, accepting wine that Bronn pressed into his hands. We were patrolling the Street of Steel, routine check. Then the shadows moved, and he took a shuddering breath. 7 of us. They killed 6. Left me alive to deliver a message. Tyrion felt ice replace his blood. But what message? The guard reached into his armor with trembling hands and pulled out a piece of parchment stained with blood. His companion's blood, Tyrion realized with horror. The message was brief, written in crude common tongue. Your walls are already breached. Your trust is already broken. Tell your queen, a man who doesn't believe in thrones is coming for hers. He's insane, Bronn said. He can't take the Red Keep with a handful of warriors. We have hundreds of guards, thousands of soldiers in the city. This is suicide. But Tyrion stared at the message, at the specific word choice, and felt understanding dawn like sickness. He's not planning to take it with force. He's going to make it fall. He looked up at Bronn, genuine fear in his eyes for the first time. How many fires tonight? How many dead guards? How many patrol routes compromised? 7 fires, 9 dead. Every northern sector route exposed. And how many guards have we pulled from other sectors to investigate? How many officers are questioning their own men, wondering if there are traitors? How many citizens are refusing to open their doors to City Watch because they're afraid? Tyrion crumpled the message in his fist. Bronn, he's not attacking King's Landing. He's making King's Landing attack itself. As if to punctuate his words, bells began ringing across the city. Alarm bells, not prayer bells. Another fire. This time in the Sept of Baelor. smoke pouring from its eastern tower. "That's impossible," Bronn breathed. "The Sept is guarded by the Faith Militant. How did he—" "Because we're not fighting a conventional enemy." Tyrion grabbed his cane, limping toward the door with surprising speed. "We're fighting someone who understands that cities are made of people, and people can be terrified, manipulated, turned against each other. Every attack makes us more paranoid. Every casualty makes us trust each other less. And while we're busy fighting shadows—" He stopped at the threshold, the horrible truth settling over him. "While we're busy fighting shadows, who's actually protecting the Queen?" Both men sprinted toward Cersei's chambers, guards falling in behind them, but Tyrion knew with the certainty of someone who'd spent his life studying warfare, that they were already too late. Not too late to save Cersei, too late to stop what Ragnar had set in motion, because somewhere in the chaos of burning buildings and murdered guards and spreading panic, the Viking was moving toward his true objective. And he'd been moving there since the moment Tyrion had met him in that cell, since the moment he'd been allowed to walk free, since the moment Westeros had made its fatal mistake. They'd underestimated him, and kingdoms that underestimate men like Ragnar Lothbrok don't survive long enough to correct their error. In Flea Bottom, as smoke filled the narrow streets and people fled in confusion, a figure watched from a rooftop with eyes that saw not chaos, but perfect orchestration. Ragnar Lothbrok stood above the city he was systematically dismantling, surrounded by his warriors who'd moved through King's Landing like wolves among sheep. Floki appeared beside him, grinning that mad grin. "The gates are unguarded, the walls are compromised. Your message has been delivered. Are we ready for the final phase?" Ragnar didn't answer immediately. He watched the city tear itself apart from fear and confusion, watched guards abandon posts to fight fires, watched neighbors turn on each other in paranoia, watched the greatest city in Westeros collapse not from siege engines or armies, but from the simple truth he'd learned long ago. Kingdoms built on fear die from fear. You just have to give them something to truly fear. "Ready?" Ragnar finally said, his voice carrying the weight of inevitability. "We've been ready since we walked through their gates. Tonight, the gates that remain standing open from within. Tonight, our ships enter their harbor unopposed. Tonight," he smiled, terrible and cold. "Tonight, we show them what happens when a city forgets that walls only work if you know what you're defending against." He turned to his warriors, men who'd followed him across an ocean on nothing but faith and hunger for glory. "The Red Keep falls tonight, not through force, through what they've become. Fractured, paranoid, weak. We don't need to break their gates, they're already broken. We just need to walk through." And as King's Landing tore itself apart from the inside, as fires burned and guards died and trust crumbled into suspicion, Ragnar Lothbrok began his final approach to the Iron Throne, not as an invader, as a man who'd been invited inside and simply never left. The greatest siege in Westeros history would be remembered not for armies or dragons or wildfire, but for the moment a city realized it had locked the predator inside the walls with itself. The Red Keep had stood for 300 years, surviving rebellions, betrayals, and the madness of dragon kings. Its walls were 60 feet thick in places, its gates reinforced with iron and steel, its defenders trained and numerous. None of it mattered. Ragnar entered through the servants' entrance, a small door in the eastern wall that 3 days ago he'd watched a kitchen maid prop open with a stone because the lock had rusted and no one had bothered to fix it. Such a small oversight. In Westeros, it seemed, small oversights were everywhere once you knew where to look. 8 guards died in the first corridor, throats cut before they could raise alarm. Not by Ragnar himself. He'd learned long ago that leaders who did all the killing themselves wore out before the real fight began. His warriors moved like shadows behind him. Bjorn and Floki and the others, each one worth 10 of Cersei's royal guard. They moved through the Red Keep's bowels, using maintenance passages and forgotten stairs, ascending toward the throne room, while above them, chaos reigned. The fires across the city had drawn most of the guards outward. The remaining defenders were scattered, confused, receiving contradictory orders from panicked officers. Ragnar had counted on this. Chaos was a weapon sharper than any blade. They reached the throne room's side entrance to find it guarded by 2 Kingsguard in white cloaks and golden armor, the finest warriors Westeros could produce. Ragnar respected that. He even felt a moment of professional courtesy as he stepped into the torchlight, letting them see him clearly. The throne room is sealed by order of the Queen, one Kingsguard announced, hand moving to sword. Turn back or... Bjorn killed him mid-sentence, moving with speed that made the second Kingsguard's trained reflexes look sluggish. The man drew his blade and died with it half unsheathed, Floki's axe buried in his chest before he could complete the motion. Impressive, Ragnar admitted, studying the fallen warriors with genuine appreciation. They didn't hesitate, didn't beg, just fought. He stepped over the bodies with the respect one warrior shows another. Westeros produces fine soldiers. It's a shame they waste them guarding chairs. The throne room doors, massive oak reinforced with iron, stood sealed. Ragnar traced the grain with one hand, feeling the weight of history in the wood. Behind these doors, the Iron Throne sat waiting, the symbol of absolute power in Westeros, the chair that men killed their fathers. He betrayed their brothers and burned cities to claim. "Break it down?" Bjorn asked, testing the doors with his shoulder. "No." Ragnar smiled, that dangerous smile. "We knock." He pounded on the doors with his fist, not frantically, not urgently, but with the steady confidence of someone who knew they'd be opened. And after a moment, after voices shouted questions from within, the doors swung inward. Tyrion Lannister stood there, looking smaller than ever, flanked by nervous guards. Behind him, the throne room stretched toward the Iron Throne itself, where Cersei sat like a queen on a burning ship, refusing to acknowledge the flames. "You," Tyrion said, and his voice carried defeat rather than surprise. "You actually did it. I told you I would." Ragnar walked forward, and though 20 guards stood between him and the throne, not one moved to stop him. They'd seen what happened to warriors who challenged these foreign raiders. They'd heard the stories of men who fought like demons and killed without mercy. More importantly, they'd lost faith. When soldiers lose faith in victory, they become obstacles rather than defenders, and obstacles could be walked around. "Seize them!" Cersei's voice cracked across the throne room like a whip. "Kill these foreign dogs, I command it." But the guards looked at their officers, who looked at Tyrion, who looked at Ragnar with the expression of a man watching prophecy fulfill itself. No one moved, because in that moment, everyone in the throne room understood what Ragnar had proven. Commands only work when people choose to obey them, and Cersei's people had stopped choosing. "You broke us," Tyrion said quietly. And it wasn't accusation. It was observation, professional to professional. Not with armies or dragons or siege engines. You broke us by making us break ourselves. "I showed you what you already were," Ragnar corrected, walking past the guards who parted like water. Fractured, paranoid, held together by nothing but fear and the illusion of strength. All I did was remove the illusion. He ascended the steps toward the Iron Throne, each footfall echoing in the vast chamber. Cersei stood as he approached, hand moving toward the small crossbow hidden in her gown. Tyrion saw it, recognized it as Joffrey's old toy. "Don't," Ragnar said without looking, his tone carrying absolute certainty. "I've faced queens before, killed several, spared a few who earned it through wisdom rather than desperation. Which will you be?" Cersei's hand froze. For the first time in years, genuine fear crossed her face. Not fear of losing power, but fear of something more primal. Fear of a predator who saw through every political game, every manipulation, every carefully constructed facade. She stepped aside, and Ragnar Lothbrok stood before the Iron Throne, that monument to conquest, forged from 1,000 swords of defeated enemies, the seat of absolute power in Westeros for 3 centuries. He didn't admire it, didn't circle it studying craftsmanship or appreciating its symbolic weight. He barely looked at it. Instead, he reached out and ran one hand along the twisted metal, feeling the sharp edges that had cut careless kings. The uncomfortable seat designed to remind rulers that power came with pain. This? He turned to face the assembled witnesses. Tyrion, Cersei, the guards, Floki and Bjorn and his warriors. This is what men die for. This uncomfortable chair made from dead men's weapons. He laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine confusion. In my homeland, we respect strength, courage, victory earned through skill and courage. But this, he gestured at the throne, this is just metal, melted swords from people who already lost. Then why take it? Tyrion asked. Why conquer King's Landing if you don't respect what it represents? Ragnar met his eyes, and in that gaze Tyrion saw something terrifying. Honesty. Pure, absolute honesty without political calculation or hidden agenda. Because I wanted to know, Ragnar said simply. The traitors spoke of the Iron Throne like it was divine, like whoever sat there commanded the gods themselves. I wanted to see if the reality matched the legend. And? Cersei whispered, unable to help herself. Ragnar turned back to the throne, paused, then sat. Not carefully, not reverently. He dropped into the seat like a man resting after a long journey, letting the sharp edges press into his back, feeling the discomfort built into its design. The throne room held its breath, and Ragnar Lothbrok, Viking, raider, conqueror of cities and killer of kings, laughed. It's just a chair, he announced to the silent chamber, an uncomfortable chair that cuts anyone foolish enough to want it badly enough. He stood, already bored. You've spent 300 years fighting over furniture. The words hit harder than any weapon, because in that moment everyone watching realized he was right. stripped of ceremony and history and political significance. The Iron Throne was exactly what he said, an uncomfortable chair. "So what now?" Tyrion asked, because someone had to. "You've conquered King's Landing, proven your point, sat on our sacred throne. What comes next in your plan?" Ragnar looked at him, then at Cersei, then at the assembled guards and his own warriors, and smiled that terrible smile one more time. Now, he gestured toward the throne room's high windows, where dawn light revealed smoke rising from across the city. "Now the real war begins, because while you were busy protecting this chair," his smile widened. The rest of Westeros noticed that King's Landing fell in a single night, and they're going to want it back.
Warriors, we have conquered! This victory is ours! Let the banners fly high!
3 days after Ragnar sat on the Iron Throne, ravens flew from King's Landing carrying news that would shatter Westeros. In Meereen, across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen received her raven while holding court in her pyramid. She read the message once, then again, certain it was some cruel jest or fever dream brought on by the heat. King's Landing has fallen, not to dragons, not to armies, to a foreign raider named Ragnar Lothbrok, who commands perhaps 50 warriors. The Lannister forces remain, but they follow him now. The Iron Throne, your Iron Throne, is occupied by a man who doesn't even believe in thrones. The parchment crumpled in her fist. Around her, advisors fell silent as the temperature in the room seemed to drop despite the desert heat outside. "Missandei," Daenerys said, her voice carrying the deadly calm that preceded dragonfire. "How many ships do we have?" "Enough to carry our forces, your grace, but the journey across—" "How many ships?" 173, your grace." Daenerys stood, her violet eyes burning with something beyond anger, beyond rage even. This was the fury of someone who'd survived assassination, betrayal, and exile, who'd walked through fire and emerged with dragons, who'd broken chains and toppled slave cities, all to reclaim what was stolen from her family. And now some foreign raider, some nobody from lands she'd never heard of, sat on her throne, ruled her city, occupied her birthright. "Ready the fleet," she commanded. "Prepare the unsullied, feed the dragons." She moved toward the balcony where Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion waited, their scales gleaming in the sun. Someone needs to teach this Ragnar Lothbrok what happens when mortals play with fire. Tyrion, had he been there, would have recognized the dangerous certainty in her voice. But Tyrion was in King's Landing, watching his world collapse in slow motion, while Ragnar turned Westeros inside out. In Winterfell, Jon Snow received his raven while training in the courtyard, drilling northern soldiers in formations they'd need when the real war came, the war against the dead, not the living. He read the message with disbelief that quickly hardened into grim determination. The capital has fallen to foreign raiders. The Lannisters serve a new master. The North must prepare. This Ragnar will come for all of Westeros eventually. We need the king in the north. King in the north, Jon muttered bitterly, remembering how that title had gotten his brother Robb killed. But he also remembered his duty, not to thrones or politics, but to the people who'd die if he did nothing. Sansa appeared beside him, reading over his shoulder with those stark eyes that saw through political illusions. "This changes everything." "Does it?" Jon countered. We were already preparing for war, just a different enemy. A different enemy we could unite against, Sansa corrected. The dead are simple. Everyone fears them. Everyone understands the threat. But this? She tapped the parchment. This is a man who conquered King's Landing in a night with 50 warriors. That's not brutality, that's genius. Dangerous genius. Jon studied his half-sister, technically cousin, that truth still strange and heavy, and saw the political mind working behind her eyes. You're not suggesting we negotiate with raiders. I'm suggesting we learn from them, Sansa said. The Lannisters ruled through fear and gold. This Ragnar conquered them through something else entirely, before we march south to reclaim the capital. She met his eyes. We should understand what we're actually facing. And if what we're facing is worse than the Lannisters? Sansa's smile was cold. Then we add him to the list of monsters we need to kill, after the Night King. Because that was the Northern way, practical brutality wrapped in honor. The dead came first. Living enemies could wait their turn. But Jon felt unease settling in his gut like winter frost. Something told him Ragnar Lothbrok wouldn't wait his turn for anything. Beyond the wall, in the land of always winter where temperatures could freeze blood in veins and silence itself had weight, something ancient stirred. The Night King stood atop a cliff of ice, his blue eyes burning with cold fire that predated human civilization, fixed on the south. Around him, his White Walker lieutenants waited in perfect stillness, patient, as only the dead could be patient. For 8,000 years, the Night King had watched, waited, prepared for the moment when the wall would weaken enough, when humanity would fragment enough, when the time would finally come to finish what had begun in the Age of Heroes. And for 8,000 years, humanity had remained united enough, just barely, to forestall that moment. Until now. The Night King felt it through the strange connection he shared with winter itself. But through the web of cold that spread across the land, the greatest human city had fallen to internal chaos. Their southern capital, that symbol of unity and strength, had collapsed not from external assault, but from its own weakness. They were fracturing, turning on themselves, breaking apart into factions that would war against each other instead of preparing for the true enemy. Perfect. The Night King raised one hand, pale, ancient, unstoppable. Around him, the army of the dead began its march. Not the full force, not yet, but enough. A vanguard, a test of how seriously humanity took the threat now that their attention was divided between the living and the living dead. He would give them time to tear themselves apart over this Ragnar Lothbrok. Let them fight their wars for thrones and cities. Let them waste warriors on battles that served the dead more than the living. And when they were exhausted, divided, depleted, when this foreign raider had shattered whatever fragile unity remained, when humanity stood alone and fractured before the long night, then the Night King would show them what true conquest looked like, what an enemy that didn't scheme or negotiate or rest or die could accomplish when the living forgot that some threats couldn't be defeated by cunning alone. Winter was coming. It had always been coming. But now, finally, humanity had given it an opening. In King's Landing, Ragnar stood in the throne room that was now his by conquest, if not by right, watching dawn break over a city that still smoked from the chaos he'd orchestrated. Around him, His warriors stood guard while Westerosi nobles were brought in chains or freely, depending on whether they'd chosen wisdom or pride. Tyrion entered without chains, carrying wine because some habits were inescapable even during occupations. "You look troubled," the dwarf observed, unusual for someone who just conquered the capital of the Seven Kingdoms. "3 ravens arrived this morning," Ragnar said, his tone absent of triumph. "Your people are predictable. They always are." "Let me guess." Tyrion poured 2 cups, offering one that Ragnar accepted with a nod of acknowledgement. "Daenerys is coming with dragons. Jon Snow is rallying the north, and somewhere, someone even more dangerous is making plans. Your dragon queen will arrive with fire and fury, expecting me to fear her pets." Ragnar sipped the wine, making a face at its sweetness. "Your king in the north will come with honor and duty, expecting me to respect his claim and—" He paused, something flickering across his face that might have been concern. "Your message said something about an army of the dead?" "Beyond the wall," Tyrion confirmed. "The Night King, ancient evil. Army of corpses that can't be killed by conventional means. The real threat that everyone ignores while fighting over furniture." He gestured at the Iron Throne. Ragnar laughed, genuinely laughed. "Of course, I conquer your city and immediately your world produces 3 bigger threats. That's the god's sense of humor." "So what will you do?" Tyrion asked. "Fight dragons, battle the north, face the dead. Even you can't win against all 3 simultaneously." Ragnar turned to face him fully, and Tyrion saw something unexpected in those Viking eyes. Excitement, not fear, not concern, pure, unadulterated excitement at the challenge ahead. "In my homeland," Ragnar said, "we have a saying, the gods prepare challenges worthy of heroes. I crossed an ocean looking for something worth conquering. Instead," he gestured at the windows, "at the world beyond. I found a land that's going to test everything I am, everything my warriors are, dragons, kings, the walking dead." His smile grew. "How could I possibly leave now?" "You're insane," Tyrion said, but without judgment. It was observation. "Perhaps." Ragnar moved to the window, watching his warriors patrol streets that still didn't quite believe they'd been conquered. But sanity never built empires, never crossed oceans, never looked at impossible odds and charged anyway. He turned back to Tyrion. "So here's what happens next. Your dragon queen comes with fire, and I show her that fire isn't as frightening when you've already walked through it. Your king in the north comes with honor, and I show him that sometimes honor gets people killed. And your Night King—" He paused, genuine curiosity crossing his face. "Your Night King I actually want to meet. Because an enemy that can't die sounds like the kind of challenge the gods send when they want to see what men are truly made of." "You'll fail," Tyrion said. "You'll die. They'll all kill you, and Westeros will return to its usual chaos." "Maybe." Ragnar's smile didn't fade. "But they'll remember me. Remember the Viking who conquered King's Landing in a night. Remember the man who sat on their throne and called it just a chair. Remember that once, briefly, someone showed them their weaknesses and made them question everything they believed about power." He raised his cup in a toast to the 3 gathering threats converging on King's Landing. "Let them come. Let them bring dragons and honor and death itself. I've conquered cities. I've killed kings. I've crossed oceans seeking challenges worthy of legend." His eyes blazed with anticipation, and now legends are coming for me. Ragnar Lothbrok had done the impossible. He'd walked into the greatest city in Westeros with nothing but cunning, 50 warriors, and the understanding that kingdoms built on fear die from fear. He'd conquered King's Landing, sat on the Iron Throne. He had proven that power was just an illusion, maintained by people's willingness to believe in it. But in doing so, he'd awakened forces that made his conquest look like the opening move in a far more dangerous game. From across the narrow sea, a dragon queen prepared her fire. From the north, a bastard king rallied armies for honor and duty. And from beyond the wall, something ancient and unstoppable began its march toward the living. Ragnar had broken Westeros's illusion of invincibility. Now he would discover if he could survive the reality that illusion had been hiding, because sometimes the greatest danger of conquest isn't taking the throne. It's dealing with everything that wants to take it back.